For the past few lessons, we have been talking about human effect on the environment and preserving resources. And today we'll talk about a very specific type of resource called biodiversity. Now, diversity means variety or different things in the biosphere, but it's more than just interesting things to look at. Our well-being is connected to the number of organisms that there are in an ecosystem. Now, when we say biodiversity, we mean different things that are included in this term. The first is ecosystem diversity, which means different habitats, communities, and ecological processes that happen in the biosphere. The second is species diversity. Scientists have identified more than 1.8 million species and are still discovering more. And finally, we have genetic diversity, which is the most basic kind, and it is the total different forms of genes that are present in a species or in the world. Now, we mentioned that biodiversity is more than just, oh, look at all those animals. It actually has a great value and is one of Earth's greatest natural resources, and it has benefits to society. If biodiversity is lost, significant value to the biosphere and to humanity may be lost along with it. The first major value is medicine. Wild species are the original source of many medicines that we use, including painkillers like aspirin, antibiotics, and this plant you see here, called the foxglove plant, is used to treat heart disease. And so the genetic information carried by diverse species is like a natural library of medicine. Another value biodiversity brings is agriculture. The genetic diversity helps us breed crops that are resistant to disease and pests and have other useful traits. And the final value is ecosystems. A variety of species helps the ecosystem stay stable and productive, and it plays a vital role in maintaining soil, water, and air quality. The presence or absence of a keystone species, like this otter, can completely change the nature of life in an ecosystem. And we actually mentioned this example before when we were talking about competition, how if the otter was gone, the urchins that the otters eat will overpopulate and eat up all the kelp. And so diversity of the species actually helps maintain the ecosystem. Now, there are threats to biodiversity. Scientists estimate that 99% of the species that have ever lived are now extinct or no longer exist. So extinction is not new, but human activity today is causing an extinction 1,000 times greater than the typical rate. And so the more genetically diverse a species is, the greater its chance of surviving. So as genetic diversity decreases due to human activity, species are put at a greater risk for extinction. And some actions that are going to affect biodiversity and reduce it include altering habitats. When natural habitats are destroyed for crops or houses, the number of species drops, and some may become extinct. Now, habitats don't need to be completely destroyed to put species at risk. The smaller the habitat, the fewer species can live there, making them more vulnerable. Other threats to biodiversity include hunting. Some animals are hunted for meat, others for their valuable skins or body parts, others for medicine, and still others to be sold as pets. Now, in the 1800s, hunting wiped out many species, but today endangered species that are at risk of going extinct, are protected from hunting by international law. Another thing that will affect biodiversity is introducing new species. As you can see, these rabbits. When an organism is introduced to a new habitat, it can become invasive and threaten the other species. As you see, these rabbits were introduced to Australia. They didn't have any natural predators or carrying capacity, and therefore they overpopulated and consumed too much. Pollution is also going to have a negative effect on biodiversity. Some pollutants may cause birds not to be able to lay healthy eggs. Acid rain and carbon dioxide in the air that dissolves into the oceans will make the oceans more acidic, and that is going to threaten the biodiversity of coral reefs in marine ecosystems. And finally, climate change can have a negative impact on biodiversity. You see, organisms are adapted to their environment, and they have a specific tolerance to temperature range. If it gets too hot or too cold, they can't handle it. And so if conditions change beyond the tolerance, organisms must move. And if they can't, well, they face extinction. And so scientists warn that if global temperatures increase more than they are now, 30% of the species are likely to face a risk of extinction. Being that biodiversity is a natural resource, we're going to continue with the same vein that we have with other natural resources, and that is that we want to conserve biodiversity and keep it the way it is and not let it go away anymore. And so there are a few ways we can do that. The first is protecting individual species. Different organizations protect threatened and endangered species. The way they do that is they select and manage different pairs of animals and let them mate and ensure maximum genetic diversity. And then they introduce them back into the wild. Another thing that we can do that's going to have a larger effect is preserving ecosystems. Scientists identify ecological hotspots, which are the red places on this map, and those places is where a significant number of species and habitats are in immediate danger of extinction. And so scientists create protected areas in national parks that can save as many species as possible. Now, protecting biodiversity often demands people to change their habits and the way they earn a living. And so it's helpful when conserving biodiversity to consider the benefits to the people as well. A classic example is offering tax credit for people who buy renewable energy sources like solar panels for their house, or creating places that attract tourists while protecting the animals. We're finishing up our study of ecology, and so tomorrow we'll take a look at our ecological footprint. But for today, please make sure to answer the questions below correctly. If you have questions about it, you can send it to me in the classroom, or you can do it along with me on Zoom. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great day.